Welcome, protectors of the light. So today we'll be going over our incredibly exciting campaign, Flames of Retribution for Age of Darkness. So today will be a dev stream where we'll be showing off Act 1 of the campaign. Today we'll also have someone who you may recognize from previous streams and possibly the Discord, who's always up for a chat, Mario Barone.
Hello.
So Mario is one of the wonderful game designers on Age of Darkness who really helped the campaign come to life.
That's right. So today we'll have a quick little look at the start of the campaign. I think we're going through missions from 0 to 2.
Yeah.
And if you haven't already checked it out, we will have a look at the early cinematic Dunstock, which really helps set the tone of the campaign. So yeah, can't wait to jump in.
Awesome. So throughout the stream today, we'll also have some different devs joining us just to talk about the process of designing and creating the campaign for Age of Darkness. And towards the end of the stream as well, we'll have time for a question and answer segment. So save all of your questions, make sure you think of some good ones, and we'll pick all of the devs' brains for all of your burning questions. We'll also be showing off Merrick, who is our new hero for the Order. So during that question and answer segment, Mario will be going through and showing us a little bit of him as well. So let's jump into it.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, just to start off with, the 3D map looks absolutely incredible. Was there a reason why you decided to go for the 3D map style rather than a 2D map?
Yeah, I think a big part of what we're trying to do here is bring something to life. And I think although 2D would have worked really well, like nice and stylized, I think the 3D element helps just bring a sense of realism to the world and helps you sort of just feel a little bit more involved in it. So yeah, I think, and just on top of that, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, it really is.
really cool to see. Yeah, I think we might have to start a new campaign since we've saved out of here already.
Yeah,
so
no problem.
Jump straight in.
Awesome. So before the first prologue mission as well, there will be a really beautiful cinematic. So we'll put this full screen and we'll let you guys enjoy this if you haven't watched it already.
Was ravaged by battles between the Elosan race above and the accursed nightmares below. Primitive humans were mere prey for the nightmares, until the Elosa, in their wisdom, forged great crystals infused with their blood that could seal the nightmare breaches. With the nightmares contained, the Elosa taught us language, civility, and how to wield the dark crystals against a common threat. Together, we were able to rid the land of nightmares. Over the ages, humans thrived, conquering the lands of Erodar and beyond. The human king, Ezekiel, in his lust for power, sought to overthrow the Elosa and gain their blood powers for himself. In an act of unforgivable defiance, the Elosa banished King Ezekiel to the realm of nightmares, the Veil. Our conflict with the Elosa spawned a bloody uprising that lasted generations. Eventually, the Elosan betrayers were eliminated from Erodar and the world entirely. In their place, the Order was founded, that we might continue to battle the nightmares and seal them in the Veil. Kings and queens come and go, empires rise and crumble, yet the Order remain, ever alight in the darkness.
Alrighty.
Awesome. We hope you enjoyed the prologue. I know each time we watch it, we just fall in love with it more and more. They really are beautiful, the cinematics, and the team has done an incredible job. So, from a design perspective, how long did it take you to write the campaign? Because it is quite extensive. The storyline, really delves deep into the world of Erodar, but also our heroes and other humans within the world that are sort of struggling with their morals. So, what was that creative process like?
Yeah, it was intense. We knew we wanted to do something that was worth it. We wanted a story that was going to be really cool and impactful and resonate with people. So yeah, the process was pretty interesting. Pretty much went away for 3 or 4 months and just sort of created a kind of a backstory and history of Erodar, the characters, the factions, and the motivations of different people, and just drama, politics. We had generations of characters and pretty much enough story that we could have done 10 campaigns. And then from there, we pretty much brought it out and started sharing with the rest of the team. We got on my lead designer, Sean, and we shared it with our writers and our senior designer, so Patch and Nick Collin. We all worked together and iterated on it for probably a year.
Yeah.
And then the challenging part was making that story fit with the actual gameplay. So we had an idea for missions that we wanted to do, and it really just was a constant process of iteration over, probably overall maybe 1.5 to 2 years.
Yeah.
From inception to where it is now.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely paid off because it really is amazing. With, I guess, these missions, especially earlier on, they do tend to act as, a tutorial for perhaps people that haven't delved into the game before or had a chance to really sort of look at survival mode. Was that always a thought that you wanted to do that, or was there something that sort of prompted that tutorial style mission?
Yeah, for sure. So, a big part of campaigns and, RTSs is giving you a nice entry to the world. So, although survival is the first place that we started, because that's kind of the core of the game, there's always people that sort of wanted a tutorial, and there was people that wanted, more lore, more history, more about the characters. So, taking inspiration from games like Warcraft, we really love that in games like that where you were kind of taught how to play the games, and you didn't really feel like you were being taught how to play the games. You were slowly learning mechanics and doing them whilst learning about the story. Yeah. We definitely wanted to do that right from the beginning, where we, sort of 2 birds, 1 stone kind of thing. But yeah, just in a way, like if people come and play the game for the first time, they can play through the campaign, get involved in the story, and by the end of it, they're sort of primed for survival mode.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there has been some sort of chatter within our community as well after we sort of released some of the little sneak peeks for campaign, whether the difficulty would change throughout the missions. With it starting as a tutorial, does it then ramp up throughout the later missions?
Yeah, for sure. So, any kind of experience, you want a good sense of pacing and ebbs and flows. So we try to have the first few missions act kind of as a tutorial, and although they're quite safe, there's peaks and valleys in those as well. So difficulty will ramp up a little bit here and there, and then as the missions go on in Act 1 and 2, there's definitely some hard ones that pop in there, but we try not to just drill you with the hard missions all the way through. Every time you hit a really hard mission, there'll be a point of rest.
Yeah.
So just to make sure that the pacing feels good.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's slightly less relentless than survival.
Yeah, I think it's true to Age of Darkness. I think it is pretty intense and stuff like that. But both in difficulty, but even just in the sense of mechanics, we explore a few different things and try to really stretch the Age of Darkness toolkit as far as we can, and just in ways that are a bit interesting. So yeah, hopefully, even if you are a really good Nightmare player, from survival, you'll still find something that's new and different and interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we've got a taste of Merrick very briefly here. A little sneak peek of one of the skills. Oops. It's a big old miss.
What makes Merrick quite different to some of the other heroes that we see in game, especially being a part of the Order where they are more knight type units? What really sort of set him apart from, say, Edwin?
Sure. So yeah, like when we wanted to add a new Order character, we knew that it had to fit within the Order and kind of the lore and stuff like that. But we really did like the idea of having this, I guess, juxtaposition between the the morals of the Order, and you know this person that's meant to be this big burly dude, but then having the gameplay effect being more of like a support tank. So it's kind of familiar, but also a little bit interesting at the same time, which we thought was quite interesting. It felt grounded, but different enough that it was unique.
Bishop, what's happened? Stand back from there.
Dark visions I have seen. End times.
So with these cutscenes as well, why did you sort of decide to go with this particular style of cutscene? Obviously, you know, throughout different games, especially RTS, cutscenes can be done in, you know, quite a number of different ways. You know, was there a particular reason why we sort of wanted to go with this style?
I think there's something personal about it. You know, with the big sense of like creating a story like this is interpersonal drama, and I think if we had something that was a little bit more removed, you know, just from like the game view or something like that, you wouldn't really be able to see some of these finer details. You know, we've got great voice acting, great music, and great character work, but I think it all comes together when you put it in this, you know, slightly cinematic sort of way. I think it helps players. Helps the things that are happening in the story resonate with the player, and just invoke emotion a little bit more. Just feels a little bit more real, a little bit nicer to watch.
And the voice acting really is incredible, you know, throughout the entire campaign. You know, it really does sort of make you understand the characters a lot more as well, and their intentions, by just having that really beautiful sort of dramatic voice acting. Yeah,
that's it. I'm constantly blown away by it. We as we're developing the game, you know, before all the voices are in and polished, you know, the designers and the writers have a good sense of like what the story is going to be. And trust us, it's going to be good. But it really does seem once those the VO comes in, it feels real and starts, like I said, invoking emotion, and you're like, okay, this is next level.
What's been one of your favourite parts, do you think, about creating the campaign?
Oh, I really do love the entire process, which I know isn't an exciting answer, but I think seeing it come out now and as it was getting close to completion, even within the team, watching people play it, it was landing. Like they were actually feeling it, and like, you know, hey, this is actually intense. Like this mission feels really good, or that bit in the story, or that cinematic. I think those moments there really made it special. But yeah, overall, it's really just the experience, right? Creating an experience that, like I said, I've said it a few times, that resonates with players. If there's even a moment that you forget that you're playing a game, you're kind of like, oh, and you're caring about the characters. I think that's where the magic is.
Awesome. Well, thankfully you beat the first mission. It's always a risk on stream, you know, you're chatting and you're thinking about other things, not just gameplay. But we did well. Well done. Oh, yeah. So after this mission, we'll see the beautiful Dunstock cinematic. So again, we're going to put the cinematic on full screen for you, so that way you can really enjoy it. And we'll also be back with another dev joining us.
Merrick, why have we returned to my village? These are good people.
You know why. Your lies have betrayed the Order, brother.
People of Dunstock, this town is found guilty of harboring an Elosan heretic. By command of the Order, you shall witness the price of this treason.
Nadia?
Saga? Please, I've done nothing wrong!
This is madness! My wife is no Elosan.
Surely this is a mistake.
Listen to reason, Hector.
Nadia Oriah, may your accursed Elosan blood be scourged in the light of the flame.
Enough, Hector! I won't let you hurt her!
Stop this! You forget yourselves!
And you forget your oath, brother. All of you, repeat your oaths.
Not for my glory! For the light! Not for my brother! For the light! Not for my life! For the light!
your oath.
Please! Edwin! She's innocent!
For the light.
Good. Light the pyre. Merrick, cleanse this betrayer in the creek.
Oh, don't worry. You'll not hear her screams much longer.
Now, to the matter of the infant. Edwin, I leave this to you. Ah, Edwin. Come. We've much to discuss.
Awesome. So we hope you enjoyed the Dunstock cinematic. Some little fun facts about that one as well. All of the soldiers that you hear saying the oath in that cinematic were actually a lot of the Age of Darkness dev team. So our audio team took them all out and they were able to recite the oath for us. And so they all have the pleasure of being in that cinematic, which is really cool. So we're also joined with Ruby now, who is one of our talented concept artists and helped quite a bit on the cinematics themselves.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'll be talking about the cinematic process and a little bit about what went into making them. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here today.
Awesome. So with, the type of cinematic that we did, was it hard with the creative process to be able to convey the story with, a limited amount of shots?
Yeah, it was quite a bit of a challenge, especially because we had to go through quite a lot of rounds of revision to reach what you see as the final product. So I can talk a little bit about the process. We would collaborate a lot with the narrative lead. So our writer, Patch, would provide us with a script, and then Alice Walsh, who's another concept artist here, and myself, we would create rough storyboards and color scripts to sort of figure out how to translate the written script into visual story beats. And then we would go through lots of rounds of revision where we'd discuss and figure out what parts of the story maybe we could find a way to trim down the shots, or where we could be clever with our use of shots to eventually make it all fit into what you see as cinematic.
Awesome. So apologies for the little hiccup. We'll be back in just a second with our gameplay and our screen sharing. But, we'll continue chatting with Ruby as well. So in the Dunstock cinematic, we see, younger versions of some of our heroes. For someone like Vizago, whose younger self looks vastly different to the hero that we have now in game, was it difficult to strip him back but still ensure that the audience could tell who he was?
Yeah, that was actually a really fun challenge because so many of his recognizable visuals tie into his Volotist affiliation. But I think it shows how much the events of the cinematic we just saw altered the trajectory of his life. And a few small details still remain. So one of those being the matching stone pendant that both he and his wife Nadia wear. And we see it in both his younger and present day models, which I think serves as a nod to his past and what he lost.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the little tiny sort of, elements of all of our heroes' costumes that tie to their backstory in some way is really incredible. With it being a top-down, I know we don't always see that, but I think the cinematics really sort of capture that.
Yeah, it's a really great opportunity to show off the characters' designs in more detail, and you kind of get to see a bit more of the humanity of the characters because you can see their expressions up close and the way they interact, which is, I guess, really rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So we'll be playing through survival just for a little bit and showing off Merrick. But we'll continue talking about our sort of amazing campaign and some of the new characters that we see through it. So Hector as well is someone that's brand new. We haven't seen before. He is quite a sort of imposing figure in the story. With these sort of new characters, what was the type of process that you went through, when designing him? But also, was there any inspiration, that you took from other sort of fantasy, references that you used for Hector?
Yeah, Hector was actually one of my favorite characters to design. He went through quite a few stages before we landed on what his final design ended up being. So it was a bit of a challenge to create someone who is older and has a more frail build, but still feels very imposing. So initially, his first iteration of his design, he was much smaller, more hunched over, and he didn't really feel like someone who commanded a lot of power. It kind of felt like you could just knock him over. So we decided that we wanted to take another pass at his design, and we adjusted him to be a lot taller, and I added a lot more vertical lines into his design with his robes and his hair and his long staff and everything like that. So it makes him feel much more intimidating. And also we sharpened his silhouette a lot with the pointy crown and the little shoulder bits, which also just makes him feel a bit more dangerous as well. And as far as inspiration goes, Saruman from Lord of the Rings was a pretty big inspiration, along with Theoden as well, because of the corruption aspect too. So
yeah. Absolutely. And I guess from a design side of things, do you ever give the artist a particular vision that you really want to sort of achieve with any of the characters, or do the art team just have free reign and just sort of based on their backstory that you give them?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a hit and miss. It's a bit of a mix. Where sometimes design does have a goals or rules that we're trying to hit at the same time. Sorry. But end of the day, it really does come down to having character designs come from the art team that fits with the world and sort of matches and stuff. And there's always so many little things that the art team, Ruby and even the 3D models will come up with that actually make it way better than what it would have been if it was well designed, I reckon. So yeah, we've had certain things like Merek, for example. We wanted a certain stature, had a few personality traits and a few things like that. But after that, it really does come down to the concepts really make them shine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really cool getting a brief because it sort of informs us about what the essence of the character is, and then there's still the flexibility to build on top of that, which is really, really fun.
For sure.
And, campaign does give us a look at Merrick in his prime. You obviously worked on the concept for the hero version of Merrick. With his backstory in mind, why was it, important for him to look still sort of a part of the Order, but very unique in comparison to Edwin?
Yeah, so both Edwin and Merrick are Order Knights, but they have quite differing opinions about their faction. So Merrick is really proud of his Order affiliation, and he follows Hector's commands quite easily, whereas Edwin is a little more discerning or a little more questioning of what he is told. And so because of this, Merrick has a much more eye-catching armor design. He polishes it, he maintains it, and he's just a bit flashy overall to kind of show that sense of pride that he feels.
Yeah.
And also, in terms of their build and stature, like Mario said, Merrick has quite an imposing stature, and he towers above all of the other Order Knights and everyone else we see in the cinematic. So when the situation starts to escalate in the Dunstock cinematic that we just saw, he becomes quite a threatening presence compared to Edwin.
Yeah, absolutely. And that shot of him sort of towering over Vizago as well, it is a really sort of powerful image, and it really does sort of capture his kind of somewhat scary nature. You don't know what decisions he's going to make.
Yeah, you want him to be on your side, so when the situation turns and if not, it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
This isn't good.
Absolutely. So it's been awesome to sort of get a lot of your insights, Ruby. So we're going to take a super quick break, and we'll be back with some more gameplay, and we'll also be joined with one of the animators from the team as well.
Thank you for having me.
And we're back. So we hope you've been enjoying the stream. We know we had a couple of hiccups, but everything's sorted. So the reason why it crashed, just for those of you who are wondering, is we were actually playing on one of our latest builds with some sort of new changes in it. So that is why. So the live one shouldn't have those problems. So now we have Derek joining us as well, who's one of the animators on the team, and worked really closely with design to create all of the beautiful cutscenes that you see throughout each mission. So welcome, Derek.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I guess for this mission, Mario, is this where things start to ramp up a little bit in terms of difficulty?
Yeah, so mission 1's still pretty safe. I think where we'll start to see a few more challenges is in mission 2, so the one just after this one. And then, yeah, it just continues as we go. And as I mentioned before, pacing and experience is really important. So we won't just have a constant ramp of difficulty. There will be spots where it gets really, really hard. And then we sort of cushion that with some softer experiences.
Yeah, awesome. So I guess for you, Derek, Age of Darkness is a top-down RTS. So, to a certain extent, we don't allow players to zoom in as close as we get, like in the cutscenes.
Yeah.
Were there any sort of considerations that you needed to really think about when creating those cutscenes?
Yeah, so being an RTS, being top-down, there are a lot of like special considerations. You've got like third-person games where the camera's always locked like to the character. Like we don't have that in a game like this. Like the player can move the camera around wherever they kind of want within that kind of limited space.
Yeah.
But they can also put their heroes other places, their units can go otherwhere. Like it's hard to give that much freedom to the player and then suddenly need to pull that back when we actually do need to provide a sort of like a narrative experience or a narrative moment. So yeah, a lot of unique challenges, and the biggest one is, I guess how do we kind of bring everything back into where we need them to be, and also how do we make sure that they haven't like built like on top of like where we want something to happen.
That's not ever happened.
Yeah. But for us, like the solution we landed on, it's a pretty common one for RTSs. It is the fade to black, as you just saw.
Yeah.
So it seems pretty simple, like a nice little fade to black. It seems pretty common, but we're actually doing a lot in that microsecond of it being the screen being fully black. So for the player, it's just a nice fade in, fade out, and they suddenly kind of like, oh, we're going to a cutscene. That's nice. But yeah, while it's black, we're actually we're like teleporting heroes to where they need to be. We're moving the camera to where it needs to be. We're like starting animations, ticking off objectives, stuff like that.
We do a lot of magic.
Yeah. There's a lot of behind the
Magic,
scenes.
yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes behind the curtain. But it's also like it really works for like also just communicating to the player like, hey, we're going to a cutscene now. Yeah.
Awesome. And, within the cutscenes as well, you really sort of see a range of emotions from all of the characters. Did you need to make a lot of unique animations for these cutscenes? And, how many perhaps did you make in the end?
I think, like, for terms of how many, it was, we made about a base animation set of about 20 kind of generic like animations for each character that got put on. Just because of the nature of game dev, we actually had to make the animations long before we could start working on the cutscenes. So that had to be kind of fairly generic, like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But those are always fun to make. But in doing that, like, we're sort of like predicting, I guess, what is actually going to be required. And that's a lot of back and forth between like narrative, we're reading the script and making sure that everything's kind of like, we're hitting those beats we know we're going to need. And then once we actually get into making the cutscenes, then it is refining that down to actually match the voice recordings. Because we want to do those justice, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess from, your perspective, Mario, were there any types of emotions or, animations that you really felt like had to be in these cutscenes to, convey the story better?
Yeah, of course. There's definitely a few moments. Some we haven't actually shared with the world.
Yeah.
There's definitely a few missions where there's really impactful moments that I mentioned before, but we're trying to invoke that emotion. So I think it all comes together. We mentioned voiceover before, but in those cutscenes, it's really just a combination of all those at the same time to ensure that the player feels a certain way. And I think Mission 4 is probably a huge one for me as well. I really love some of the moments in that. But yeah, missions, all the way through the second act, I think it really starts getting impactful.
Yeah, the story really kind of ramps up, I guess, was the mission you're on. Yeah.
And I guess for you, Derek, was there any, specific animation that you really loved working on the most in Flames of Retribution?
I think honestly it was all of Aurelia's anime. I think she brings a real kind of like youthful energy, I guess, to like the character hero lineup we have so far. I just think that their dynamic between her and Edwin is like, it's really fun.
Yeah.
I think they have like a pretty cool like relationship. Makes for some nice story moments. But like, yeah, in terms of her animations in particular, like, I think she has just so much more energy, I guess, than some of the older heroes we have, and getting that into her cutscene animations, making sure she's feeling a bit more lively. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see a lot of new sort of environment art throughout the campaign, which really helps set the tone of the missions and the state of Erodar as well. So, was there a lot of process behind the set dressing, for the different factions?
Yeah, so like bringing the world to life, I guess, in terms of the story, there's a lot of context, visual context we can give to the lore. So a lot of set dressing here, you got like Norfolk, their villages, so it's a lot of like farms, not a lot of like military kind of stuff. Like these are very much like simple peasants, and we need to kind of show that like in the kind of like the world that they're living in. So but also like showing the destruction that has been caused like to them, and that their kind of relationship with the Order. And then of course you go to like Order outposts, and they're like much more military. Yeah. So just exploring like how we can kind of like give some like visual identity like to these different factions and how they live.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, touching on Merrick being the new hero, with each new hero, I'm sure there comes, some more challenges to really bring them to life when it comes to their animations and their abilities. How did his sort of imposing size really play a factor into his animations?
Yeah, he's a chunky boy. But like that was a lot of fun to animate him, to be honest. Like, especially like his abilities, like crushing weight and stuff like that. Like,
I love that ability.
It's so smooth, so much fun. But that was really a collaboration, I guess. Like the animation is a big part of it, like getting all that weight into his movement and like that giant axe, like swinging it around. But that started right back to the concepting with Ruby, going into the character art, like really showing that kind of size, like physically. And then the design, actually making his attacks feel impactful, and then like the lore, and even like going to the VFX, and also the audio for him. The audio, like bringing it all together, it really made him feel super powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think like using Merrick's abilities in game is probably one of my favorite out of all the heroes, which is saying something because I love Alice and I think she'll always be my number one. But as you said, I know I've got a soft spot for Edwin and now Merrick, but his abilities, and they really they feel incredible, they feel impactful, and as you said as well, like bringing the audio together really makes such a huge difference.
I think in particular the audio for Merrick is like pretty incredible. They've done a really great job.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess for you, Mario, what was one of the most difficult things about designing the campaign? But then also on the other side of the coin, what's been one of your favourite things about designing campaign? I'm hitting you with the hard questions.
Yeah, so overall campaigns are tough. Anything with a story is tough, and anything where you want to combine a story and gameplay is it's going to be difficult. Pairing that with an RTS, we pretty much in a world of pain. It's super challenging thing to do. But I think
fun pain.
It's so rewarding though. So I think the main challenge really was that, like getting the story and the gameplay to meld and feel fun. There was a very long time before even playing a mission as simple as this one, where it didn't feel like something that you want to play. Very early on, the story wasn't, there was no VO, there was no music, there was no polish, so it really was kind of up to the imagination and just the trust. It was like, please trust us, it's going to be good. And thank God, with a combination of everyone together, we were able to do it. And I think it's kind of my favourite thing as well, right? Like I mentioned earlier, when it gets to that bit where it's that last 10% and we're almost there and it's starting to feel like a thing, that's the magic. It really is being able to tell a story and get people invested and have an experience and care about the characters. I think that's what it's all about.
Trust the process.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, no, I definitely remember early stages of playing the campaign and listening to the placeholder VO that we had in, and it was very entertaining, playing the story that we did have with some, very hilarious, ill-fitting VO. So yeah,
I miss it.
Yeah.
So we have to tell you. So Hector, his initial voice was like an AI created voice, and it was a Brooklyn accent.
Yeah, it was like a mobster.
Yeah,
it was amazing. It was
So,
amazing.
we'd be hearing these cutscenes with these scripts and the cinematics, but he'd be like, "Brother Vizago." So that's
That really played into the cutscene process as well. Like being able to get in VO that early, to time everything before it was actually recorded was super helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it was the same for the cinematics as well. We even had, some people are part of the dev team doing some plays. Maybe me.
Teena was actually.
I was Nadia at one point. But yeah, so we did that also with the cinematics just to help, the team sort of do the timing and really set up those shots. So little things like that really do help, but. The real VO, when it comes in, it just makes it feel so much more magical.
I have to admit, I got pretty emotional the first time I heard Guy, the person that plays Edwin, hearing his voice in the voiceovers, cinematics and cutscenes.
Yeah.
It's just so amazing because we had this story, on paper for such a long time. We're like, oh, we think this is good, we think it's good, and obviously trying to do the father-daughter kind of thing with Edwin and Aurelia. And then when we finally hear it and we're seeing the cutscenes that you're putting together and it's all sort of piecing together, it's just, it's starting to feel amazing.
Having that banter back and forth between different characters and finally seeing it sort of come together and actually having, a real kind of connection going on with the twin characters is, amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely feel a little bit more connected and their personalities really sort of shine through with all of that VO, which is amazing. How you going, Mario?
Not too bad. I made sure I did the little side mission at the start here, and because of that, I think we're going to get these Iron Talon out of here. No worries.
And so with the side missions, are they optional missions or are they still objectives that you need to complete, throughout the campaign to actually, get a successful mission at the end?
For sure. Yeah, no, they're definitely optional. We most of them are put in a way where it should encourage you to do it because you'll get some sort of benefit for the mission, or you'll learn something that you didn't know, maybe a path or a strategy or something like that. But end of the day, players don't have to do them. And I think what it does is if players do miss them and they still get through the mission, seeing their progress at the end in the world map is kind of good for the completionists. You can sort of look back and be like, oh, actually, I missed something, and gives you a reason to sort of go back and maybe find something, even narratively, that you might have missed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there have been some questions, over the last sort of 24 hours. Will there ever be achievements, do you think, for campaign, for Steam achievements? Is that something that, we might potentially look at in the future?
I would love to. I think it's something really important. I think it also touches on what a few other people mentioned, things like difficulty. We don't have anything planned at the moment, but any form of thing to track, progression, mastery, things like that is I think it's super valuable.
Got platinum.
Yeah, it's definitely a sense of achievement when you can tick everything off and you see all those little trophies. It's great.
Oh yeah, I think especially if we are to do things like the side missions, if we had achievements, gives you another reason to go out and find all the secrets.
Yes, absolutely. So I know the other day when Camgirl Johan was streaming, he was very upset that we made him build gates because he cannot stand them.
Gates are important.
Yeah. I admittedly, I never build gates, but that could also be why I lose most of my Death Knights. So there might be a correlation. But yeah, do you, I guess in your normal gameplay, is this something that you would usually do as a tactic, or are you just pure walls, pure defense.
I don't think I'm allowed to comment on this. Because, that would be pretty bad if I didn't use gates. Gates are great.
And what about you, Derek? What's your sort of go-to strategy for defense?
I always use gates because I want Edwin like out there, like in the middle. It's like him as a lone warrior, like up against the Death Knight. Really.
How does Edwin fare up against that many enemies during a Death Knight?
His crackfire, like it really is like so good at like crowd control.
Yeah.
Like some of the other heroes have like really great crowd control as well, but I think for me, just the classic crackfire. Be able to clear out a wave just as like hitting you. It's
so true, man. I think especially as the new heroes come out, we've got more and more. So we're upping the ante every time. So
yeah, absolutely.
I think because of that, people look back at Edwin and like, oh, he's a bit safe. But it's like Edwin is old reliable.
OG, OG. Yeah.
Even his stats though, like he starts off quite average and he actually gets quite strong.
But in campaign, like his abilities like really come in handy.
And I know as well, you've mentioned, previously, Mario, that each hero tends to have a slightly different difficulty in a way in terms of, their playability. Yeah. Is that something that you thought about from the very beginning of, when we created sort of Edwin and then Alis, or is that something, that came about differently?
Yeah, of course. So when we first made the initial hero Edwin, there wasn't too much thought into it. It was just, let's make a cool hero, right? Yeah. That's what the beginning was. But the second that we started thinking about the second one and planning for Alis, we knew that, we wanted to have sort of infrastructure there. We were just trying to ask ourselves what's going to make this hero interesting. And a big part of that was gameplay, and cause at that point we already had people playing in different ways. It's some people that are a bit, a bit more casual, and some people a bit more hardcore. And we wanted something that was, a bit more unique. So as we went on, by the time we hit Vizago, it was very clear at that point we had this hard to master hero that ends up really, really good, but for the common player, a little bit more difficult compared to something like Edwin. So yeah, we really like that, and we wanted to continue doing that along the way with the next three heroes. But we've also tried to, we've mentioned this before, but we've tried to give them a purpose, a play style or something like that we're answering that we haven't done before, or solving a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And does that sort of, I guess, ring true as well for Merrick? Like, what sort of, gameplay elements were you trying to sort of achieve with his abilities and his style of hero?
Yeah, no, Merrick definitely does that. So, when we're doing the heroes, part of it is fitting them within the lore and the world and what players, kind of want. But then another part is, trying to solve the problem. So with Merrick, one of the big things we wanted to tackle was to give people that fantasy of being able to fight with your army, So Merrick's kit really does support synergy between him and his army, so that you can take out your army, melee units even, and really just buff them up to a point where you couldn't with any other hero, and fight out there on the lines with no gates. Just feel awesome. And I think another cool thing with him was that the juxtaposition with his background. He's this guy that's not very nice, but he has this history of being a healer and support hero, which doesn't really fit. So we're trying to show that he has a bit of history, that maybe he wasn't always a bad guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, another successful mission.
Yes.
Well done. So we'll take a really quick pause, and we will be back with one of our other devs. But thank you so much, Derek, for joining us today and chatting a bit more about our cutscenes.
No, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Now we're going to be jumping into Mission 2 and showing off some more of our beautiful campaign. We obviously don't want to give away all of our secrets today, so we're only going to be playing until Mission 2, and then we can always show off a little bit more of Merrick. But we also have Sam here with us. So Sam is one of the producers on Age of Darkness. You may have seen him in one of our previous streams, or chatted to him in Discord as well. So thank you.
Usually top tier gamer, easily the best player. I can beat Nightmare. Don't listen to anyone else.
He uses skates for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I think Sam and I's ability to beat anything on Nightmare is probably on par.
Easy clap. Easy clap.
Age of Darkness is such a huge game with so many moving parts. Adding a campaign mode is, no small feat, and obviously it's something that you've been working on for quite a while. From a production side of things, you know, how was it trying to plan for everything? You know, especially with new features, were there any, you know, major challenges that you sort of faced in that regard?
Yeah, definitely. Production is the real nightmare of, you know, this game. Essentially, you know, we're not just making a campaign, we're making 3 games at once. You know, we're making sure survival's still like bug-free and playable for everyone, working on campaign, getting all that feature set ready, as well as still working on multiplayer in the background there as well. And because of that, you know, you kind of look at your schedule and your scope and knowing what dates you need to hit and what we may look at, you know, making concessions on. And one of the really painful things that we actually did discuss was, can we deliver VO? Yeah. And I think we can all agree the game's better off with the VO in there because it's all amazing. But there was definitely at least a period of a week or two where we're discussing, look, if we don't do this, we can do X, Y, Z instead, and really thought about it. But, you know, our overall commitment and what our entire team wanted was, no, let's invest in the VO and make it sound as cool as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you know, the quality is definitely there, and, you know, I think it speaks for itself, pun intended. I know that was terrible. I'm so sorry. So, you know, Mario, we heard from Derek as well about, you know, some of the challenges potentially when animating Merrick. You know, from a design side of things, when the heroes are animated, are there certain factors that need to be taken into account, you know, from design, like perhaps like movement speed and those sorts of things?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of a back and forward, but we kind of iterate through it along the way. So design will start off with some base values and things like that and requirements, but then as soon as we pass it off to animation, they'll give us a new version. We'll just iterate through it. So it really is a thing of communication. As long as we're staying on top of it and keeping everyone updated, it's usually pretty smooth.
Yeah, when it comes to hero development especially, we usually have like feature check-ins on that sort of stuff, where it's just the team working on that, talking with one another, going, cool, we want to maybe up this attack speed or lower this cooldown and make sure that, you know, heroes can just be a bit more punchy or whatever design we want to do with it. And that is requiring constant feedback, otherwise someone's going to pull the build and realize, oh, my thing broke.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, definitely a really great collaborative process between all of the teams. Who has been your favourite hero to design so far, Mario?
This is always a tough question because they're all my babies. Like, I love them all. Every single one of them, there's something that's, you know, I had a big part in and work with the other designers. We all care about them. We start off with something like, hey, how do we make something cool? So there is a moment where every single one of them is our favourite hero. I'll say that I think the hero that's not out yet may end up being my favourite for multiple reasons, but I think Merek is really interesting. I think Merek, what we've done with him, the synergy that we've tried to work on, I think lands really well. He doesn't seem very flashy when you first look at him compared to something like Vizago or Cyrus, but once you play him and you get through, you know, level 4, level 5, it really starts to click and you start feeling like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So I think hitting things like that feels really satisfying in creating our heroes.
Yeah, and I guess, Sam, for you, who is your favourite hero to play with?
I was definitely an A-list stan pretty early on,
yeah,
you know, when I was an absolute trash tier player and, you know, getting the loyal guards, having just to, like, body around me and
did
just
you say
like...
it was a trash?
Yeah,
I did say it was.
Has that changed? I mean, I shouldn't talk, I'm no better.
That was easily a lot easier for me to play with. But since adding Merrick, I think there's something really appealing about, you know, you can just get that meat wall, as the term is, I think.
Yes, that is Ryan. Yeah. That is his absolute favourite term. He loves creating meat walls with the cultists.
Yeah, you can just absolutely buff that meat wall with, like, Merrick's entire ability set. Not only that, just, like, being able to use his crushing weight just to kind of jump across the map and, you know, we did see some fun bugs with teleporting there, and, you know, it was a fun time of development just playing around with that.
I could imagine. And, you know, I guess from a design perspective, Mario, with, you know, each hero, do you sort of balance them in a way that you know that perhaps during certain death nights they're going to be more useful, or how does that sort of process work, and where do you look to in terms of difficulty to balance the game as well?
There's a lot of facets, and I think kind of like how we mentioned earlier with heroes like Vizago, it's kind of hard to master, but once you get there, it's really good. Heroes like that are typically harder at the start of the game, and the later you get into it, the better they get, but it really does require you to micro a lot at the start, so it's kind of like an investment. Then you've got other heroes like Cyrus or Aelus that are maybe a little bit easier to play, but don't hit quite the same cap. So the idea is that, we hit a few different targets with each of our heroes' kits. So we want them to be good in exploration, so just going out and clearing the map, fighting like a point of interest or swarm of enemies during the day. They need to have merit during a death knight, and then just sort of a unique factor. How am I playing with them? Am I playing with them by themselves? Am I playing them with the army? So those are the three kind of pillars that we use to do it. But yeah.
I think building off that, to Mario's point, especially having like heroes like Vizago who are a bit more difficult to master, it definitely synergizes pretty well with like that resource element. Once you hit high tiers of his ability set where he's got Serenity, he'll start getting that Dark Crystal, Dark Essence, and can then unlock later skills in the perk tree, which is something that may come easy to other players, but we build that in for Vizago because he is kind of harder to master early on.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, feel free, everyone, to shoot through as many questions as you like in the chat. I know we did have some of the community yesterday asking some questions in Discord, so we'll be going through some of those now, and I know probably one that is going to be at the top of everyone's question list, and I definitely saw this a few times throughout last night. Is
that the Daddy Merrick skin?
No, unfortunately it's not. I'm sure that will be coming. But everyone is obviously super excited about campaign, and I know a lot of RTS players absolutely love campaigns in their game. It really sort of fleshes out the story quite a bit. But there have been some questions, multiplayer when. Is there still a process of designing multiplayer, and what are the sort of challenges there?
Yeah, I think one thing that we saw, especially with campaign, is one of those other sort of trying times was finding fun. It's all well and good to have a tool set that we can build out and make missions with, but it is a very iterative process, and make sure it's fun, balanced, a reasonable player could get through it, and it's not only Kangol Johan that can beat everything. That was definitely key there. The same thing goes for multiplayer. We are still working on it in the background. When we have more to say on it, we'll definitely talk about it. But the game was at first built for one player, so making sure we can find the fun with two players is going to be key there.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people have been really excited about some of the new units that they've been seeing in campaign. There have been some questions. Will there potentially be new factions? Will be, expanding on units that perhaps maybe we've seen in the campaign? This is definitely a question that's come up a few times. Thoughts?
I'll throw to Mario.
Yeah. We'll throw Mario under the bus on this one.
If I get a dart, then so we've definitely, you can't have a world like this with different factions and characters in it without considering them as playable sort of entities. So I'm assuming people are going to ask about things like the Alderan Empire,
absolutely,
especially because we've gone through the effort of actually making units for them.
Yeah.
It's definitely, I think, something that was always kind of a thought in the past. So even before we made the campaign, that was kind of an idea the second that we had them. But I don't think we can promise anything yet. I think it really does depend on how we go with the follow-up updates. We still need to do our Act 3, and that will complete our campaign. But then, as Ryan's mentioned, I think in the past, we want to focus on improving the quality of life of survival. So who knows? I think if there's enough people that want it and there's merit to it, we can do it. But yeah, it really will depend.
Yeah, as Mario said, like post-campaign and as we work towards multiplayer, we're pretty focused on quality of life and performance. There's definitely, options where we can look at some of that stuff. And there's more teasers of what could be, I guess, in later campaign missions. So definitely keep your eyes out there when it does drop.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there also any plans to introduce difficulty throughout the campaign and perhaps, have the different difficulties to be able to choose at the start, or is it purely just going to be, throughout the campaign it'll slowly sort of ramp up?
I don't think we've got anything locked in or confirmed, but we've chatted about the idea of it. But I think if we were to, again, it would depend on how many people want it. If we have a huge outpour of people wanting it, I'm sure we can consider it. I think if we were to do it, it probably wouldn't be the same as survival, where we've got heaps of different options and customization. It probably would be more equivalent to StarCraft, where you'll have maybe the default mode, which we think is balanced quite good. Like it suits the common sort of player, and we'd probably add a nightmare difficulty or something like that, where we just tweak the values within the missions to make them more difficult. Something like that, I think, if we were to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So another question, and I guess this is more sort of around, what you mentioned before in terms of like quality of life fixes. Is there any, plans at the moment to do another update that's purely just quality of life fixes? Perhaps before Act 3 or after Act 3.
Yeah. So we're definitely looking at kind of all the data that's coming in. We do have like crash analytics and some other analytics tracking, as well as player feedback and sentiment across Discord and all our social channels. Wherever you are logging feedback, we are essentially watching that. The major thing here is we want to make sure we get Act 3 out in a quick and timely manner, so that we're not leaving the story kind of hanging for anyone, but at the same time making sure that the game's still in a playable state and feels good to play in all kind of current game modes. That being said, we do have a pretty tight release structure sort of thing. So we do work through with our QA teams and go through release sign-offs. So as soon as we can kind of functionally release something that we are happy with the quality, we're going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're always sort of around in Discord as well. If you've got any questions or, any bugs, obviously feel free to report it there also. But just on the topic of Discord, what we'd love to do as well is do a little bit of a giveaway for some of the amazing t-shirts that you see us wearing today. So we have our really cool faction t-shirts, and what we'll be doing is we'll be posting a link in Discord. So if you're not a part of the community, please join. And essentially we're going to do a little competition. Tell us what your favorite hero is in 25 words or less. And we will pick some winners to win some really cool merch. So make sure you jump into the Discord, and we'll be posting that link after the stream today, which will be really exciting. But keep sending through your questions, and we will keep going through as many as we can. Let me just search for a couple of others. So, will there be more separation for how the factions play in the future? So not necessarily new ones.
Yeah, right. So we call this internally faction identity, and definitely, I think this is something that we want to commit to more. It is something that we wanted to do early on, and we didn't quite get all the features that we wanted in. So yeah, I think we've got some things coming up pretty soon, potentially.
Yes.
There was a bit of a question mark on that one.
I've been up since 3. I've only had like 3 hours sleep tonight. I know we've got one of our designers looking at overall faction balance and kind of differentiating that, as well as looking at how we can do more stuff for the future campaign update. So tentative yes, can't guarantee a hard timeline on anything like that at this point.
And I know, on factions as well, a couple of people have mentioned that, in the sort of trailers and throughout the campaign, they've seen unique buildings for some of the factions. Is that something that, we'll expand on a little bit more, whether it's keeps or training halls? Has that sort of, been something that's been considered?
Yeah, I know the design team have definitely put together some stuff like that. There are some things happening in the works on some of that, which we're hoping to get more details out soon about. But in terms of what that looks like and how gameplay changing it is, it's probably going to be more, we'll update you as it kind of comes along. That key thing of finding the fun and making sure it kind of feels good before release, it's pretty key to the overall quality of the game at this point. But we don't want to just introduce something that we're not seeing players engage with, or just this kind of a meh feature.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I guess with that as well, is there, possibly any, potential to have each faction have their own, like, very sort of specific, unique uniforms as well, so that way they have a really strong sort of, visual difference?
What do you reckon, Sam?
I don't want to stress out our poor art team more than we need to, personally. One of the benefits, I guess, of the game itself is that having soldiers, archers, there's a lot of shared units that kind of benefit on, cool, this can be a recolor and adjust the texturing from that. And it probably just insulted every artist with that thing. There's probably a lot more to it.
I think you got it.
The unique faction units, the Lightbearer, the Cultists, everything else that we have in the game is kind of exploring that. This is more that faction's overall a major identifying unit, and if we see more love for that, we can definitely look to add more in the future. But it's, we're pretty happy with where it is. We've got some plans for potential stuff if it all plans out and it's still fun. But if you guys want it, tell us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's always, the fun part about being in early access is we love, hearing all of the feedback from the community. So never stop, because we really want to make this game alongside you all as well and make it the best that we possibly can. Now, I know you did give a little sneak mention before, Mario, about the next hero. So will the next hero be dropping before Act 3, or will they be with that update?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it's safe to say it. I no one's attacked me.
Let me just let me go.
Yeah. The intent is to drop, in the same way that we dropped Merrick with Act 1 and 2, we dropped the final hero with Act 3. It's all kind of encompassing in terms of like the story and stuff, so it should be relevant.
Yeah. I'm sure people will probably start asking more and more questions, looking whether we're going to get told off for that one. But yes, we are keeping the final hero a little bit more under wraps at the moment. We really want them to be a really big surprise. And I know, between a lot of the team members, they are, one of the favorites, I think, so far. So another question is that, is there going to be a unit added to the Rebellion that makes Nightmare a bit easier to handle, similar to the Order's Catapult?
Right. It's definitely a good idea. With those unique units, we added the ones that we've got. I think we added 2 for every faction, or the intent was to add 2. And the Siege Catapult was meant to be the identifying factor for the Order. I'm hoping with the new balance stuff that came out with 0.9, the discrepancy between the Siege Catapult and the other units is a bit less, because I think the Siege Catapult was maybe a little bit too OP. The intent is that, each of their unique units should be used within the faction to maximize them, and if you're playing them the way that faction's meant to be played, you should get the most out of it, sort of thing. So there's no reason that hunters in the Rebellion and a combination of hunters and rogues shouldn't be just as powerful as the Siege Catapult. They're just different.
Yeah. And if you are, I guess, curious about what changes were made in the latest update, everything is in the patch notes on Steam. So we have, spoken about in the balancing changes there, exactly what has changed with some of those other siege units.
Ultimately, Mario's just saying, regardless of what faction you play, you should feel equally punished.
That definitely seems like the theme, yes. Any key giveaways this stream? We don't have plans for it right now, but it's definitely something that we will be looking at doing in the future. With a lot of our giveaways, we will be doing it through Discord, just to really sort of engage with the community, and we love chatting to you all in there. So definitely keep your eyes out in those channels, and we will definitely say a little bit more on that coming soon. Searching through some of the other questions.
Mara, you're at max wood capacity, I've noticed. I always get criticized for not...
Yeah, I was going to say, because every time people play and we sit on resources, Mario is the first one to say, what are you doing? Hurry up and spend your resources.
TBH is a campaign. But yes, I should be ridiculed just as much.
And, you know, as you sort of mentioned, like being in campaign, do you, you know, I guess, is it necessary to continuously build and spend your resources? Or can you really sort of, you know, play the campaign in a way that you want?
It really depends on the mission. So, you know, this is only mission 2, so it is still a little bit light and still quite forgiving. As the missions go on, that changes a little bit. What we try to do with each of the missions, though, is we're trying to teach you something, we're trying to introduce something, we're also trying to challenge you with something. So this one, the challenge is quite limited. It's really just you getting your feet wet. But as the missions go on, that challenge gets turned up quite a bit.
Yeah.
I guess off of that, Mara, how did the design team kind of go about balancing overall missions, because it's largely a base building, you know, title with being RTS. Like, you're constantly under pressure, getting that sense of this is the right amount of pressure we're applying and still giving players time to build. Like, was there a process that you as a team kind of went through for that? Yeah,
it's just constant iteration, and I mentioned it a little bit before, but that sense of peaks and valleys and ebbs and flows is really important with pacing. As I mentioned, we try to introduce something in each mission, but when it comes to the difficulty, it really is just iteration. We're just playing it and checking it and figuring out where it fits within all the other missions. And then just getting feedback. You know, if we're having QA or, you know, maybe someone who's not as good at survival playing it. And
I see you looked at Sam for that. There was definitely a side eye there, but continue.
If someone's struggling to get through a mission, then we can sort of assess it and be like, all right, cool, maybe this is a bit too tough, or is it meant to be that tough, you know, and we can review it. But yeah, it's just a constant iteration thing, constantly tweaking the values and eventually getting it to a point we're happy with.
So what was your favorite mission to work on so far, Mario? I guess, you know, in Act 1 and Act 2. We still got Act 3 to come. But yeah, in this first sort of Flames of Retribution release, which one did you love the most?
Yeah, for sure. So I think I'll have to sort of just give a little note. We had 3 core designers working on the missions of the campaign. So myself, we had Nicholas Amzalag, and we had Shane Dalton, and then our senior designer, Nick Collins. So Nick really helped guide us all and ensure that we're all on the right path, and we're hitting the same sort of thing, and it all is kind of cohesive when I talk about progression and stuff. But then the actual missions that get worked on were mainly championed by a single designer. So I had the pleasure of being able to dip my toes in quite a few of them, just because I was on quite early, and having a share of some of the other guys' missions as well. But the ones that I worked on primarily were Mission 3 and Mission 4. I really love 4 with what we do with it in terms of trying to do something unique. The choice-based thing and all that sort of stuff, getting some of those RPG elements, I think was really, really cool to explore, and playing with that choice system that we see with the Rebellion and Alderaan interactions. Very different and challenging, but I think it was quite rewarding to do something different. But then, yeah, I think outside of that, it's really, really awesome to even just play through some of these early missions, so Mission 1 and 2 from Nick Amzalag. They're super clean missions, and I know when we play through them, if it's a tutorial, sometimes we go, oh, it's just a tutorial, but making a tutorial like a mission that feels facilitating for everyone to play and sort of teach you is really, really tough. So I think, yeah, it's just a testament to the you know, everyone that's worked on it, including Nick. They feel great. They're really tight.
Yeah. And you mentioned choices. How do the choices sort of affect the gameplay when you get to those missions?
Yeah, it's unique per mission. We wanted a system in there so we had the freedom to do something like that. You know, when we're still iterating through the campaign, we weren't really sure exactly what the limits of these systems were going to be. We knew we wanted some sort of, you know, morality or some sort of moments like that to fit with our morally grey world that we try to aim for. So that was pretty much the bounds of it. And I think, Mission 4, you start to see... Sorry, Mission 3, you see it just more as a gameplay sort of thing. We just choose, hey, which reward do you want? Which is kind of cool. Gives the player some agency. Yeah. But Mission 4 is when it starts to get a little bit more emotion bound or, player choice bound, where it's affecting the story or the people that are alive. So I think it's kind of interesting. If we look at things like our Dunstock cinematic, that helps set the tone. Yeah. And then moments like that in those missions help reinforce that tone. Yeah,
absolutely. And I guess, how does the campaign really tie into the pre-existing lore that we already had with Survival?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of the lore came about when we started making Alice, I think it was. So, Edwin, we made Edwin, we had some very sort of shallow sort of lore, and then when we were like, hey, let's make new heroes, that was kind of a goal that we wanted to hit. We wanted to make it, feel real, feel impactful. So there was inklings of lore happening at that point in the background. So if people remember when we shared the blog posts of Alice, we showed a little bit of backstory there. It wasn't really too fleshed out, but once we decided to work on the campaign and I went away to sort of write the tome of the backstory, that's when it really started. We really were fleshing out all these different ideas and identities and factions and all that sort of stuff. And that is what turned into what we've got now. So it really, the campaign is driven from that. So from that lore that we created, it all started from there. And it helps just facilitate telling that story.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do distinctly remember several times, like Murray, yourself coming into the office and going, oh, cool, like, here's the latest, like, campaign draft, when we're still going through the iterative process on that, or, like, we had several hero ideas where I think it was Cyrus wasn't yet implemented as a hero functionally, but we knew that he was going to be linked up with Ayla somehow. Yeah. You'd written backstory for it, and it's like, it'd be really cool if we go with this, and then, seeing that iterate and go, just refine it more and more, it's like, oh, cool, like, it's not only just, like, this idea of this would be cool. It's like, we've made it fit. It all fits well together. Yep. And just kind of see the magic kind of start to form. And seeing that passion kind of walking into the office and just getting the latest update of the draft from yourself and the other, like, designers.
Sean.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's done really well in the campaign as well with the story, is just the way that all of the heroes and, the characters, their stories and, their history really sort of intertwine. And it all just kind of fits together like a little puzzle in this campaign, and it's done really, really well. So I guess, was there any inspirations for this campaign, perhaps from other games or other, like, even just, TV shows or movies that you really sort of loved and took inspiration from?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things. There really is. There is a lot. I think the obvious ones, most people already know. Warcraft 3, is a huge sort of inspiration, and the tone of the Game of Thrones. Yeah. I think that should be obvious. It really, all the stuff that we do are things that are inspired from those. Something a little bit closer though, Aurelia and Edwin, for anyone that didn't already notice it, has been heavily inspired by the relationship that you see in the original Last of Us game. Joel and Ellie, that kind of tough father-daughter sort of thing. There's something really impactful about that, and I thought felt very human, and I thought it was really cool with this idea that we had with Edwin, where he wanted to redeem himself. He's got his own issues with his past and failing to help people. So it's kind of a glutton for punishment, where he continuously tries to help others and continuously fails them.
And do we ever find out what happens to Edwin's eye?
Interesting, yes. So we did have, there is lore for it. There actually is backstory lore for it in that tome.
Wasn't it a flaming sword accident?
He was just practicing a bit too much and accidentally slipped.
Yeah, so the backstory changed a little bit with some of the main reveals that we've got in Act 3. Oh my god, I just lost. That's hilarious. I don't think that's ever happened. I don't think anyone's ever lost Mission 2. Damn it, I was talking! Max resource.
He is a good player.
To be fair, you would have heard the keep under attack thing if you weren't like talking.
Yeah, Yep, and I bet the comment's going to be great now. I'm just going to be like,
Yeah, there's a couple of comments. Mario, how? Just how? Yeah, look, streaming is definitely something that, takes your attention away from the game, chatting and really sort of thinking about your in-depth answers. I think it's understandable.
So I'm sure we'll walk out of this room and we're probably all fired at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I'm never going to live this down. That's fine.
Maybe we can show off a little bit of Merrick, and show off a bit of his brute strength, because I'm sure we'll see if you can perhaps get past a Death Knight with him.
I'll give this save a go. We've got
Teena.
Yeah, we've got a pre-save on. We'll see if it works. Fingers crossed.
And what challenges did you find, when trying to bring this sort of narrative to an RTS campaign format?
Oh, it's just, RTSs are just tough. RTSs are really tough. And you look at games like Warcraft and Starcraft, and they make it look so easy.
Yeah. It
really isn't. And I think it's just a testament to every studio that's made a campaign that feels even okay. It's really tough. I think, just the gameplay is kind of limiting. The tension that you feel is kind of limiting. The target audience is kind of niche. So finding something that's going to resonate with all those sort of factors is just a juggling act.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think as well, the dev team is naturally their own harshest critic. So we're playing this, seeing, it'd be really cool if this. I wish you just had more time for that. Like seeing how people have reacted to the campaign, how much they are enjoying it and loving it. It's really invigorating to kind of see. It's like, oh, this is landing, and like, yes, we can do a ton more stuff and get a plan to do a ton more cool shit in Act 3, but it's really positive to see the player reception so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just the vibe in the office, even yesterday, coming in and seeing some of the streamers that, were sort of streaming Age of Darkness, the little campaign sneak peek overnight. Just everyone on the dev team getting so excited to see everyone enjoying it so much, and all the, incredibly positive comments that have been coming out of it. So, we love seeing that, keep them coming, and we hope, you continue to love this campaign.
It's weirdly satisfying to see people die in campaign as well. Like, I love watching it.
I can't wait. Obviously,
I was going to say, case in point. Yeah.
Dying Mission 2 isn't too impactful, but I haven't actually watched any streamers play through Mission 4 yet. And TLDR, little sneak peek, Mission 4 is where we want you to die. Like, that's the first time we actually have like a difficulty spike in it, so I actually can't wait. I can't wait to watch some people die and get frustrated at it. It'll be really cool.
We may be watching streams like last night at 1, 2 a.m. and just going, nah, this guy's gone. Like,
we're making bets.
Yeah, he's not set up well. One of our engineers, Alex, definitely owes someone $100 as well.
Yeah, our hydrated king.
Yeah.
Oh dear. So when designing Merrick, how did you find a way to sort of make him fit into the world? Also just making sure that he was really sort of like useful with his abilities, and being able to be sort of powerful, from the beginning.
Yeah, right. So we touched on this slightly before, but all our heroes need to hit certain goals. We want them to. We can't have a hero that's good at one thing and just sucks at everything else, because it just wouldn't be fun to play. So it really does need to be a combination of it, and it's just playing with those dials. So are they really good at the start? Are they good at the end? Are they really good at Death Knights? Are they better at exploration? And just fiddling with those sort of things in a way that feels unique and fun and interesting. And then just, constant iteration. We start off with a general idea. Shout out to our senior designer, Nick Collin and James, for working on Merek and polishing them up. But they had some goals to start with and really just worked on it. Just kept working on it until I'm playing it, getting feedback. And just following those sort of things and people's feedback until it shines.
Yeah, absolutely.
Likewise, we did have one of our artists, Perry, actively complain that there's no hero made after him. So we had to copy his luscious beard and put that in the game.
Although he looks like my dad, which I don't know if that was a thing on purpose from the art team. Thank you, art team, or not.
We seem to have people asking for bin chickens in the game. I'm not sure whether Nightmare bin chickens is something that is currently on the radar of the design team.
Do the nightmares eat chicken? Is that law appropriate?
I'm for bin chickens. I reckon. Yep, love it. I'll chat to Ryan about it.
Now, who would win in a fight between our heroes, Edwin or Merrick?
Oh, okay. Oh, this is tough.
It is quite tough.
Has Edwin dealt with his trauma? That is the question.
I want to say neither have dealt with their trauma.
Yeah.
Because I think they've both got quite a bit of trauma that they're hiding.
Yeah.
So I want to say neither have dealt with it. They're not in their prime, perhaps.
I'd love to say that this isn't actually the reason why you got this burnt eye, but I'd love if like Merrick gave him the burnt eye and it's because they fought at some point.
What time of day is this as well? Because I feel like later in the day Merrick's starting to drink. Like...
True, yeah, he might be a little bit more sloppy. Okay, well we'll put it on an even playing field and we'll give it in the afternoon, so that way Merrick's still somewhat fresh.
Look, I think if it really came down to it, Edwin would be able to pull it out of the bag just because he's got that internal pain and probably cares about it a bit more. But he's really got that Batman vibe, right? Where I don't think he'd ever kill. He could never bring himself to actually kill Merrick unless he had to.
So tell you what, he'd feel bad about it afterwards, though.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that.
Although Merrick crushed someone's his video where he crushes the skull. Oh,
he's pretty brutal.
He could kill Edwin, for sure.
So were there, I guess, with the original designs for Merrick, was that changed at all, like, throughout the development? Whether it was his sort of size of the character or anything like that, or, maybe even his abilities. Did you start off with one ability and thinking, no, maybe that, doesn't work and sort of scrap it, or how was that?
Yeah, so it really does come down to more of a production scopy kind of thing, but usually the heroes start out way more dramatic than what they actually end up being. Like, we're like, yeah, we're going to do all these crazy ideas. Edwin can teleport, just silly
and then
stuff.
Production starts crying.
Yeah. And then and not just that, like, design always starts off a little bit, a bit of dreamer sort of mentality. But when you start playing with it and you actually put it into the engine and you get hands on it, we start to realize what the actual core of it is. And Merrick had a few iterations, but I think he's probably the closest to what his initial goals were. Straight from the start, we kind of knew what we wanted to do. And I think, although he's changed a little bit, a lot of it has been pretty consistent. I think he's really been fine-tuned all the way, versus some of our other heroes that got totally changed, totally scrapped and redone. Probably Merrick and Ayla, probably the cleanest.
I feel like most of Merrick's abilities stayed largely consistent throughout the entire process. I know at one point he had a flagpole sort of thing, and spoilers, he may have at least had boxing, brawling sort of gloves at one point as well. Sorry to disappoint if anyone was really hung up on that.
Cool though. Yeah, so he was going to stab the ground. And
and then production came in.
I said no.
Yeah. Blame them.
So we actually have Camgirl Johan asking, what challenge do I need to do to get the paintings behind you guys?
I also try to get these paintings.
Yeah. These paintings were actually made for the studio by our CEO. So he did a little bit of art when Age of Darkness first was released into early access. So yeah, we have these awesome paintings behind us. I don't know if he will let us give them away, but who knows? We'll never say never. I'm sure he'll fight me on that, but we'll see. Do we think we'll ever have special edition skins for heroes?
Actually, this was something that was discussed. Again, never say never. It's not currently a planned thing, but we've definitely talked about, what would a Rebellion Edwin look like? What could that skin look like? And going through and doing that for all the heroes. Naturally, that becomes a larger and larger task the more heroes we add. So it wouldn't be something that if we're doing it, I can't see us doing it one at a time. Yeah. It'd be, hey, they all have an ultimate skin sort of style. But again, if the community wants it, just keep shouting about it, please.
So So how are you going with your setup? Well, I mean, I think you were lucky because this was, set up pretty well on this save. But do you think you'll be able to get through the Death Knight? I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, look, I probably not. Although I've been set up quite well, it's so hard on stream. Definitely, we gotta give respect to people who do this professionally because it's not easy.
That's my excuse too. I'm not streaming, but I just say it's hard on stream when I die.
It definitely does take a bit of your concentration away from the game. But people are saying you also need to scout more.
Yes, I
agree. What are you doing, Mario?
I agree. You're right. I'm also a little bit scared, to be honest. I'm a little bit scared because I don't know. This is someone's save file, so like I could go out there and there could be I'll do it.
The map really does lend to that sort of I guess ominous feeling, especially as you go further out and it becomes really corrupted, and it does feel really eerie. So it does make you feel like you don't want to explore as much.
Also, I've been in campaign for a long time now, so like
oh no,
the vibe is scary again.
Oh, the bursts. The bursts, I think, are probably my most hated nightmare, just because they can easily annihilate you.
Their initial design was way scarier. So very, very early days before we even went into early access, what we wanted to do was have the spitter, so it was like kind of spider-like, and then there was going to be a special version of it. Then when you killed it, it dropped out spiderlings or little baby explosive bursters.
That sounds terrifying.
Thank God we didn't do that, because I think everyone would have just stopped playing out of frustration and fear. But the nightmares go through quite a bit of iteration too.
So a question we had come through from Camgirl Johan is, can we get food debuffs on huts and farms the further we go out? So into those sort of like corrupted areas, would you perhaps see like reduced resources when you're building on them?
I really like the idea.
Kango, what is wrong with you? Who hurt you?
I know, you're just trying to punish yourself more, which is crazy.
I think it sounds like a really clean hardship or malice that we should consider.
I feel at this point, Kango's just going to have to get his own special build.
Yeah, it definitely seems like Nightmare doesn't seem to be punishing enough for you, which is almost concerning, because I feel like the game is pretty punishing. I mean, I say that and I've only beat it on easy, so that was punishing enough for me.
That, you got a lot of stone there, man.
Yeah, I'm loving it.
Just sitting on those resources, Mario.
I've probably got more training halls and I don't even know about them. But...
I feel like you also need to build more units.
Surely that perk tree.
What's your favourite perk to upgrade usually?
It's hard because you end up min-maxing pretty quick, right? Once you figure them out. I think in theory, I love Shadow Step, and just because of what it means. Shadow Move, but most people end up going Fire Arrows or Critical Cover. Fire Arrows is probably my go-to, just because I love that it's got the chance of the fire exploding in AoE. And I really liked I think it's called Wolfblade? Nice. Yeah. I love the damage reflex stuff as well.
I feel like Critical Cover's underutilized. Like, on later Death Knights, it's definitely pretty OP.
Yeah, it used to be meta as well. Like, it used to be what everyone used. And I think when we adjusted it and added the buff to fire, it might have skewed it a little bit.
Damn devs, nerfing the game.
Would there ever be any thoughts of perhaps expanding the skill tree at all, or even changing some of the skills?
Yeah, I think this period that we've mentioned how we want to do quality of life updates, I think there's definitely room in there to at least look at the perk tree. There's a few perks in there that, no secret, aren't used very often. So yeah, that's probably where we're starting if we were to do something like that.
So someone said maybe on Nightmare mode, all of the malices or hardships would potentially be activated as a new difficulty level.
Oof. I feel like that's surely a pretty easy hardship to implement, but I'm
also terrified.
I'm concerned about what the interaction is between it all, and just how completely scuffed it could be.
At least we have one person playing it.
True.
Johan?
So I know some of the heroes, like Vizago, for example, become almost a little bit stronger at night, and they do have, more of a buff. Are there any other heroes that play the same, or potentially, future heroes that will have something similar?
I think it's definitely an interesting thing to play with. With Vizago, we used it because it fit with his character and his lore so much. He's meant to be the leader of, this faction. So it really, really suited that. I think if we were to do it with multiple heroes, it might taint it a little bit and make it less unique to him. But never say never. I think there's definitely room to do the inverse, a kind of emboldened daytime sort of thing, something like that. Or if we were to go even more interesting, do a flip, where you've got some type of hero that's, kind of worse at daytime or something like that. But yeah, we wouldn't want to do something like that for no reason. It'd have to be well thought out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just waiting for Johan to be screaming in the chat. Yes, do it.
Yeah, I know, that sounds good.
I feel like you're pretty well set up for this. Like, you've got so much resources, and you're still 3 days out from the Death Knight.
Yeah, I don't think I've been building up enough, though. We'll see.
Triage 10's a lot more viable as well with this update. From the patch notes, I know James, our designer working on survival, has definitely made it a lot more useful.
Yep.
For those that, have them on the front lines, they're going to at least regen armor now as well. And I think the regen speed and rate is a lot quicker. So if you're really kind of struggling on that Death Knight, strongly recommend putting him down.
Yeah, we really, I think over the last 2 survival updates, so it's something that we've been slowly trying to improve. Because, when we first put them out, they didn't quite hit the things that we wanted to. So yeah, I think finding any sort of room to make them better is fantastic. And I think they've done it now.
That was actually one of the other ones that I remember early on. We played around with how we could implement sort of a healing sort of thing. I think there was talks of it being a slow-moving cart at one point where it just go between front lines.
Yeah. I think people have asked for that now as well. They're like, oh, we should have a triage tent that you could, drive around. And I'm like, damn it, that would be cool. Yeah, it's tough.
And I guess, with the balancing, not just for the buildings, but also for the units as well, is that something that you'll continuously work on up until 1.0? Or do you think there's a certain point where, you'll just be, happy with everything and that'll be sort of it? Or is it just going to be a continuous iterative process?
Yeah, games are never perfect. They're just finished. There will be a point where we'll have to stop, but I do think that we're going to be working towards just making it as clean as possible during that quality of life period up to 1.0. I do also predict that when multiplayer, comes closer, there'll probably be some things that we need to look out for there in terms of balancing, because multiplayer it's complex. In the same way that we had to do with campaign, we'll have to keep an eye out for balancing and stuff like that. So yeah, fine-tuning is definitely not done yet.
Yeah.
I think, while I'm not a designer, and I wouldn't try and speak for him, I don't think we're going to leave anything in a state of, this is obviously broken. Especially while we're still working on adding new content to the game. Murray's called out multiplayer, we still have that final hero, and people are looking at, there's this other faction in the campaign. If that was ever a thing that we eventually go down the line of, we'll want to make sure that everything is a viable option that you can play within your toolkit.
And I know there's also been some talk about whether, there would be perhaps new nightmares added to the game. Is that something that you're looking into, or, have you sort of considered adding in a new nightmare just to make it extra challenging?
Yeah, I think there's a well-known flaw at the moment where at a certain point in the Death Knights, for the more experienced players, it becomes quite tedious where you're just kind of doing the same thing. And this is something that we're aware of, but we'd love, if we had the opportunity to do a new nightmare, it would be something that would tackle that. Something that can help put a twist in the gameplay during that point. So yeah, we definitely want to. At least one more.
Yeah.
I think purely from a prioritization standpoint, because I'm that big bad guy doing that. It's literally at this point we want to get campaign and that next hero out. So definitely Nightmare is a massive value add. It affects every faction in survival. It forces players to play different. There's a lot of value there. Our current high priority focus is finishing the campaign and not leaving you on that cliffhanger, and hopefully sharing the course hero with you pretty soon.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have Edwin Everard in the Twitch chat. He has come on. He wants to know if there are any plans to put an interlocker device on Merrick's mouth to avoid him taking a drink.
I think he might need it if he makes it out of Act 1 and 2 safely.
Look, if
no spoilers.
If we're saying Edwin's got to deal with his trauma, I think somehow they've got to get therapy as a thing within Erodar, as well as alongside that
therapy.
buddy cop. Buddy cop.
That'd be fun.
That would be cool. 2 ex-Order Knights on the road together. It'd be awesome.
I feel like we had a missed opportunity for the two Order Knights raising a teenage girl together. There's a sitcom.
2.5 Order Knights.
I like it.
Netflix, where are you?
What was the inspiration behind the game? Not necessarily campaign, but just the survival mode as well.
There was one moment, so it's that episode in Game of Thrones where Winterfell's about to be taken by the White Walkers. I think that was probably the biggest inspiration. It was just that moment of like, we're done for. Yeah. Surrounded, you can't beat this. You're the last hope. It's this tiny little thing that can't make it, and somehow they're gonna have to do it. I think there was something really impactful in that, where, as a concept, as like the last bastion of humanity, fighting off something that seems unbeatable. That I think that was the moment, the biggest piece of it.
Yeah, and I definitely think you feel that as well. With the Death Knights, when you see all those thousands of enemies coming towards you, you really do have that impending doom really sort of looming over you when you're playing the game. Which gives you a bit of anxiety, but also really sort of like makes you pay attention and hopefully win a Death Knight. Hopefully being the key word.
Hopefully not streaming it.
I think alongside that, like, we all play other games as well. We're all gamers outside of just Age of Darkness, and you look at other roguelikes or RTS games and think, hey, this would be cool if we did that. And I know, even yourself, Mario, you've come in and gone, oh, I was playing this. What if we tried something like this?
Yeah.
And we've got an incredibly talented team. That's often a reality. We can at least whip something up and just try it out. See, is this fun?
Yeah.
Does it work? And then if it doesn't, no harm, no foul.
Another great question is, do you think we'll ever have an endless mode in survival? So just unlimited nightmares coming towards you and seeing how long you can fend them off for, which sounds absolutely terrifying. But also great.
We've definitely considered it, and even within the structure that we've already got, so not just making a whole new mode, because that's quite a bit more complex, but we've even considered doing it in some form of hardship. I don't think we can promise anything yet, just because we'd have to look into it. We'd have to look in to see how plausible it is within the system. If we were able to do it within like a hardship, for example, you play the game and then you beat the final stand, and then that's when it starts, and now it's never ending. I think that could probably be manageable, but yeah, it would just be a question of time versus value versus fixing problems in the game or improving other things.
I think a thing that players aren't seeing as well is, with all new content, we're certainly fixing issues that come up, but as you develop stuff, issues come up at the same time. So while there are bugs still in the game, there were a lot of bugs in campaign that we've since ironed out and shipped it as a presentable thing. Even developing something like that, there's probably a lot of edge cases that we'd have to really sit down and consider. That being said, I also know Alex is probably sitting at his desk and probably just going to do it now.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of passionate devs, and they just do things sometimes.
Love it.
So another little comment was snowy terrain would look great, which I'm sure we can all agree it really would. But is there any, ideas behind perhaps new environmental maps, a change of scenery, or, is it going to be just purely set in the world that we see now?
This was definitely discussed alongside that earlier comment about, going further out, having less resources that you can kind of gather. It's definitely something that, the team is interested in trying out. As you can see, the art looks fantastic. That in and of itself is kind of an art-heavy task. Keep asking for it, is all I can say. I know we have a few people really keen for it, so I can't guarantee anything, but I'd love to see it. But also snow, I feel like it's kind of so overdone. Like, give us like desert or like lava and stuff. Like, get weird.
So
with
you're gonna
it.
make the
Veil
art
and
team,
lava?
cry even
Hell
more.
yeah. Hell yeah.
Entire lava map, amazing.
Scope creep. Let's add water arrows while we're at it. Just.
So I know we had a couple more people ask about multiplayer, and I guess what type of mode we're looking into. Is it going to be co-op or PvP? Are there any ideas around that at the moment?
Yeah, I think we have confirmed we're looking to co-op as a feature for that multiplayer aspect. That does still present difficulties with that. Some people are really fantastic at the game. Some people are really not fantastic. Not to name names, but me.
I died in the campaign, so it's okay.
So a lot of it's going to come down to kind of balancing, nightmares and how difficulty works within the existing survival game for that co-op. Because essentially you could have that one person just carry you, which I'm not going to complain about that personally.
Yeah, no, I will definitely need someone to carry me.
But I don't want to get on another live stream and have Kemgil Johan go, guys, what the hell? This is even easier now. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff like that, as well as even, how would blessings and malices interact? Like, do people get the same ones? Do they get different ones? It's not just an easy, just take co-op and add another player.
And RTSs are hard. There's a reason why, their billions don't have multiplayer. It's an incredibly hard task that I don't even understand, but I know the engineers that are really, really smart, that have done things that other engineers can't do, still haven't solved, multiplayer 100%. So it's tough. It's a really challenging thing.
Yeah, I think as well, especially if you've got one player that can kind of beat the game with 60 to 70,000 units on screen, or that's kind of where we're trying to keep performance at, so most people can kind of run the game anyway.
Cool. And keep your questions coming through as well. They've all been really awesome. And, we love picking Mario's brain as well. And, thank you to everyone who's really sort of enjoying the game and has joined this live stream. We really love showing off all of the hard work that our devs have been putting into this game. And, it's great to sort of share some little sort of secrets and behind the scenes information with you all. How you going, Mario? Do you think that's enough units?
No, it's not.
It's really not.
I'm so ditched. I know it. It's fine. I think I've accepted it. I'm ready to die twice on stream today.
We died once in campaign. We can't let the community down and die in survival as well. You've got 4 minutes. You've got a lot of resources. You just need to build some units.
I just don't know where it's going to come from. Okay. There's a chance it comes from here. And if it comes from here...
Well, that's why we need the watchtowers.
Yeah. Alright, it's fine. We're just gonna make it.
As soon as the countdown timer starts, it's always the time for panic. When you're just stressing out about where the nightmares are going to come from.
Alright, let's get our gang over there.
So someone did ask, with co-op, would you consider doing sort of special hardships for co-op only?
Yeah, for sure. So I think if we were to carry over the base systems to co-op, it really would have to still feel like survival. But I think with 2 players comes a lot of opportunity to create really interesting blessings and malices. That's not saying that we just get rid of all the old ones and bring in only new ones, but we'd probably have a hybrid, or we could potentially edit them. Yeah. for it. Here we go. All right. Look, now I was playing for it. It's the only spot I put tier 3 wolves.
Smart. So you knew all along.
Of course. Of course. This is all going to plan.
So another great question is, are the maps RNG or are they fixed design?
For survival?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is RNG. We've got some really good procedural generation tools that we use. I think we've actually had some tweaks to them for 0.9 as well. I think they've been changed a little bit. So your maps actually will play slightly different to what they have in the past. But yeah, it's just a series of procedural generation that we play with to get what you're experiencing.
I admittedly am one of those players that when I start a game, if I don't like the look of my base, I will absolutely start again and try and get a good map.
Yeah, I'm definitely the total opposite, and maybe I'm just a masochist, but
it's probably just because you're a better player.
It's crazy because I'll just play it and I'll be like, oh cool, I'm like ready to adapt.
Yeah.
Ready to survive. And yeah, I probably should pull out a bit earlier if it's not looking good.
Well, look, you've got 2 minutes till this Death Knight, and I reckon you might be able to survive it. Yeah. There's definitely a bit of a question mark in there.
Yeah. Look, I'm not putting money on it.
What's your favourite unit generally to build?
I love quite a few of them, but I think one of my favorites is probably the Rogue. I just love how there's something quite different to it. You play quite differently, and it's not necessarily like OP or anything like that. But it's just fun to get a whole bunch of them and just play a bit differently, and taking out an elite with 20 rogues and you've just broken out of stealth and getting a whole bunch of gold. I think it's just really interesting. I think anything that sort of adapts the gameplay a little bit like that is really cool. And then for the standard units, I'm starting to like pikemen. And I don't know why, because they're just a tier, like mid-tier sort of unit, but yeah, there's something about them that I'm starting to like.
And they do have a bit more reach in comparison to like some of the other units, like the soldiers.
Yeah, I think it's probably the shred that does it for me. But for sure. And the light bearers as well. I think so. I think just the unique units really do make it a little bit more special. Playing something that plays a little bit different is always interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So are the hotkeys customizable? They do appear to be similar to Age of Empires 4.
I think they are. I know we've had a problem in the past where I think they were working and then maybe they weren't. So I'm hoping that they're working at the moment. Please don't quote me on it. If they're not, let us know and we will get to it ASAP.
But yeah, I think if you do want to, you can always remap the hotkeys and sort of set it up how you would usually play. But generally at the start they'll sort of be the sort of standard settings. Oh, we're getting close now. What happened to your gates, Mario? I thought you always build gates.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So Mario has been caught lying to us because he has built no gates, even though he says he always builds them.
Wait. I was going to build another one, but these nightmares.
So now you really got to show off Merrick in a Death Knight and see, how he really sort of just annihilates all of these enemies.
Look at this gate. Look how good it is. Look at these gates. Have a look. Look at that. He just killed a raid.
Oh no.
Pro gate strat. Now here's a pro game move right here. There we go.
Okay, so why is that a strat?
Look, I'm not going to lie. I just did it. I'm not.
For absolutely no reason? Awesome.
I'm hoping that it plays out. It's in it for the long game.
If anyone else does that strategy, I would love to know.
I'll see Johan
Yeah.
do a nightmare run with just sideway gates.
We have, had some people as well asking if we'll ever have the ability to put gates on a diagonal rather than just on a straight. Is that something that you've considered, or perhaps are there, some limitations behind that?
Yeah, there is limitations. Funny enough, in the initial version of the game, when it was just, pre-early access, before we even had combat, the gates did go diagonal. We did have the tech to do it quite differently, but it was less grid based at the time, I believe. There was just too many edge cases that made it not fun or sort of frustrating, that we decided to go for the more traditional sort of square approach, the 90-degree angle approach.
Yep.
And although it's not as aesthetically pleasing as having a diagonal one, I think it was for the greater good.
Yeah.
I think any changes like that, because like sometimes it's a little bit hard to understand from the player point of view. It's usually a value question. You know, if we did this, is it good? Sure. How much is it going to take for us to do it, and at what cost? What can we not get in now if we do that? And that's usually where it lands.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they're coming for you.
All right, let's get Big Boy in. He's not even here. Classic.
He's just hiding.
I put him in the wrong area. It's all right. He's going to arrive fashionably late.
I'd love to know, I guess, what people do. You know, when you play a Death Knight, do you tend to send your hero out, or do you maybe hold your hero back until maybe all the nightmares have broken through the defenses and you use them as a last defense? What way do you usually play Mario? Do you tend to send them out early on, or will you hold them back?
Yeah, I try to do a little bit of a mix, depending on the hero I've got and depending on what sort of tech I've decided to go into. In this case, I've just gone, heavy sort of defenses and a whole bunch of range units with a small amount of backup of AOE. But since I've got Merrick and quite a few pikemen, not a lot, but I've got a few pikemen in there and a few light bearers, I am planning on going out there and getting into the mix of it a little bit. So hopefully our range units can help take out the spicier enemies for us before we jump in there. And we can sort of, prod our way in and out to maximize the input.
And I know, the priority targeting that we have in, to perhaps like target the strongest enemies, that was really something that the community wanted. And I think, since that, targeting things like the crushers in Death Knights and, the spitters is definitely becoming a little bit easier, so you can try and eliminate those really difficult enemies earlier on. I mean, unfortunately, you're still left with 1,000 enemies after that, but getting rid of a few of the bigger boys definitely helps.
Oh yeah. Alrighty, let's see if we can get some spiciness going. We got him leveled up, which is good. Here comes our Crusher, which is going to be a limited problem. Popped his Holy Protector. Some armor for our buddies.
And how did you balance Merrick, being a tank but also a support unit? Because he is quite sort of, unique in that fact that he is able to, help units, gain a bit more armor, but he is still really a, aggressive tanky hero.
Yeah, it's like all other heroes, right? Where we just tweak things to the point where they feel good. But in his case, I think it was really a balance of making sure that he feels heavy and he doesn't feel too strong. But you'll notice that like in these early levels, he's a little bit weaker than some of the other heroes. He's got quite a lot of damage in his hits, but his DPS isn't too crazy. And because he's a bit slower and stuff, he feels less responsive than something like Aelus or Cyrus. And it sort of just all comes together to make sure that he feels like the role that we're trying to create there. Yeah, that's pretty much the approach.
I reckon you've got this.
Although I'm worried is this does bring back armor now, right?
Yeah.
But he's in combat. Yeah. Okay. We're getting pushed. I think we're gonna need more AOE, to be honest.
Yeah, I am definitely a big fan of the Ballista Towers. I always try and build as many as I can.
This is where you really start to see the synergy of his kit coming together. Drinks on me proccing from his Halberd Hurricane attack with all your melee units. You really can't do this with any of our other heroes as effectively. Like, arguably, you could slightly do it with Vizago at night time, but yeah, this is really where the essence of Merrick came from.
Was that essence pun intended?
Yes, yes.
We'll say it was. Awesome. Nice job, Mario. So thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been great to have you all here and to view our campaign with us, and a little bit of Merrick as well. Just a reminder, make sure you join the Discord so that way you can be a part of the giveaway to win one of these awesome faction t-shirts.
Oh, yeah.
We can't wait to hear which faction is your favorite and which hero. We definitely have hot debates all the time in office and talking about which ones are our favorites. So I can't wait to hear what you guys like. But that's it for today. Thank you so much, everyone, and have an awesome day.
Thanks, bye.